Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, this is HolyLord, and today we're gonna discuss a Demon Hunter's magic find gear and skill build. I have to warn you that with a magic find gear you're gonna die more often than with your normal gear. So let us begin. The first thing we're gonna cover is the items you need to get and the stats on them you need to aim to get. First of all, the weapon. Sadly, weapons don't have magic find increase affix. You need to get a socketed crossbow. Don't go for bows. I mean, bows are decent, but with this build, we're gonna aim for a heavy damage build. And a crossbow is better because of the 50% critical hit damage increase passive skill. So, my bow has the perfect stats, my crossbow, and aim to get critical hit damage as a stat plus a socket, which means that's gonna increase your critical hit damage a lot. Sadly, my weapon is only 1000 damage, because if you go higher than that, it's pretty expensive, but dexterity kinda covers a little bit of a DPS increase on the actual weapon. So if you're not rich, let's say, not exactly poor but not rich, try to at least get critical hit damage plus a socket. Don't aim for dexterity or vitality or anything like that. If you have money, get a high dexterity, a high critical hit damage crossbow. Next thing, a quiver. A quiver, try to get as much as a better chance of finding a magical items prop as you can. Plus, it needs to be a 15% attack speed increase. Aim to get some dexterity. I mean, my quiver is not the best. It's mediocre, because I didn't have that much money to spend on high-end gear because of my barbarian. And of course, aim to get as much critical hit chance as you can get on a quiver. Next thing, boots. Aim for high dexterity. You don't exactly need vitality, but you need a higher magic find stats. Plus, I don't have these boots yet, but try to get movement speed increase. They're pretty expensive. They go at least like 5 or 6 millions a pair, a decent pair. But if you're going there and you have the money, try to get at least a 10% movement speed increase, at least a 16% magic find, and at least a 200 dexterity. Next thing, pants. Pants don't differ too much. You should go for high dexterity, a little bit of vitality, at least 100 that is, and magic find. Try to get at least 16%. That applies for all of your items. If you go lower than 16%, except rings, it's just not worth it. So, we're gonna cover the jewelry afterwards. Belt, that's the easiest one to remember, just a high dexterity and magic find. Don't go for anything fancy, cause they get pretty expensive. Next thing, armor. I'm going with flat high dexterity and magic find. It's not the best armor, but you can get to at least 250 dex with, again, 16% magic find. For the head, you need to get critical hit chance. You will not get a higher dexterity on this helm, because they go very expensive, in the tens of millions, and it's just not worth the money. It's not that much of a damage increase. So the essential thing here is you need a stat, a magic find stat, at least a 16%, and a socket. So you can get, as you can see from this helm, I get 39% magic find. This is one of your main magic find items. Next thing, shoulders, pretty usual, dexterity, high dex, and magic find. Again, 16%. Plus. For gloves, as you can see, I found decent gloves. They were cheap. Someone put them for, like, can't remember, around 600k, but they're pretty awesome. Try to get all the stats these gloves have. As much dexterity as you can. Critical hit damage. Try to aim for more, because as I said, I'm broke and I don't have money to get like at least a 30 or a 35%. 16 plus magic find and critical hit chance. Don't go lower than 7.5% because that's again not worth it. Bracers. These ones are pretty nice. Those are like high end. You need to go for higher dex, magic find, and at least 3.5% critical hit chance again on these. And luckily enough, I got a gold range pickup, which is pretty helpful because it's annoying to pick up gold when you don't have that stats. But don't aim to get it on any of your items because it's not essential. It's not. Basically, you don't need it. And lastly, jewels. My amulet, sadly, I don't have money to buy a good one because this one is high end. It gives me a lot of damage, and I don't want to change it to a lower tier one just for the magic find because I have a high enough magic find as it is, and when I get at least like 20 mil, I'm gonna buy a new one. For an amulet, aim at least 30% magic find, and it differs. You can go with the critical hit damage, like at least 40%. Or you can go with critical hit chance, at least 8%. And of course high dexterity. Try to aim at least 150 dex on an amulet. Rings. You should go for high dex. I went for a critical hit damage on this ring because it was pretty cheap again. But aim to get as much as a high statistic you can get on critical hit damage. And 15% magic find for ring is good because if you go 16 plus, the price range increases a lot. It increases drastically, basically. And this is my second ring. I found it again pretty cheap. That's why it's a little bit lower than 15% magic find, but it gives a lot of damage increase. That's why I got it. If you can get a dexterity, critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and magic find, it would be the perfect ring for this build. So off to oh yeah, one more important thing that a lot of people ask me and suggest. You don't need vitality, you don't need all resist on a demon hunter, especially for this build. If you go for vitality, you're gonna sacrifice a lot of damage, and you're a, how can I say it? Basically, you need to kill an elite pack before you die. Even if you get vitality, you're not a tank. And you can become a tank, but then your DPS is gonna suck and you're gonna die either ways without any chance of killing the elite. And resists are even more worthless because they are only good if you have at least like 50,000 health or something. So yes, just aim to get as much damage as you can so you can kill elites as fast as you can. As you can see, I have 229% magic find without any stacks, any buffs or whatsoever. If you go over the 200 range, elites without the Nephilim Valor start to drop rares. Basically, I'm getting 80% of all the elites I kill, I get at least one rare, which is pretty good. And it allows you to farm one elite pack, like close to a waypoint or something, or you know, an easy place to like kill a bunch of elites. So you don't exactly need to farm the whole act. The problem with this build, as I stated, is you're pretty much a glass cannon as a demon hunter. Plus, with the magic find, you're sacrificing a lot of damage because the magic find stats requires a lot of money to buy first, and you sacrifice one stat of each armor piece to get the magic find. Okay, next thing, your follower. Your follower should be a Templar because whoops, as you can see, he's the only guy that can wear all the gear that can have Magic Find stats on it. First of all, you need a spear. I would suggest the 300 spear because it's cheap and it gives a lot of Magic Find as a weapon. It's one of the few weapons that actually have Magic Find on it. You don't want your Templar to do damage or tank anything. Even if he's dead, he still gives you a Magic Find boost. Because his Magic Find, you get a little bit of a percentage from him to your Magic Find as a bonus. A shield should be anything you want, just aim to get the maximum Magic Find, which is 20%. The amulet, again, get just Magic Find. And same for the rings. So my guy is giving me a little bit of a Magic Find boost. And I'm pretty sure if you go over the 300 Magic Find without the buffs, and when you get like 5 stacks, you're gonna like swim in rares. Literally swim in rares. Now, that takes care of the gear. Let's jump off to the skills. Basically, your primary attack, as I'm a big fan of it, is the Hungering Arrow with the Shatter Shot rune, because, as I stated in my previous tutorials, when the arrow splits, it auto aims to the nearest mob. If there are no mobs, like this is the best used against one mob, one elite to be more exact, because when it bounces, the arrows come back. So basically you hit him once, the arrow splits, and the 3 arrows, at least one of it just bounces back and hits the target again. So that's like 2 or 3 shots per one of your shots. Next thing, for my right click I use Evasive Fire. First of all, this will be your main AoE spell against like cluster of mobs and so on. Plus it gives 1 more hatred per shot. The Hungering Arrow gives 3 and Evasive Fire gives 4, and with this build you're gonna need as much hatred as you can get for a short amount of time. I'm using the Covering Fire rune for the AoE. Plus, this spell gives you a little bit of survivability, because if there is a fast mob or something dropped on top of you, it literally backflips you like some meters away, so you can survive. You can even dodge the attack from the mobs. Not always, but you can with this spell. So your main damaging spells against elites is gonna be the Cluster Arrow with the Cluster Bombs rune. Basically, you need to get the hang of this. It's let me show you. It's a volley of grenades. The problem with this is if you get a reflect damage mob, you're gonna insta-kill yourself every time. So you need to time it. Basically, like shoot it first, wait for the grenades to go to the lid, then smoke screen. Sorry, I forgot the name of the spells. And you're gonna deal a heavy amount of damage, because as you can see, it does 230% of your weapon damage. It's enormous. I'm getting at least on one grenade 300k damage, which is awesome. I can deal up to 1.5 million damage per one arrow, but it's pretty rare because usually elites just follow you, and it's kind of hard to hit them with this. But it's good when you time it with smoke screen, and it kills them pretty much in 2 or 3 arrows, if you don't die, that is. Next thing, as usual, preparation with backup plan, so you can have discipline. It procs for me pretty decently, so some people go with how is it called? Let me find it. Ah, there we go, the Focus Mind, because it gives you discipline over time, but that's only one time use. You use it and that's it, and you're gonna pretty much die. And as usual, smoke screen with Lingering Fog rune. They nerfed it a lot, but it's still viable, especially against reflect damage mobs with this build. I am going for Marked for Dead spell. A lot of people say go for Vault, go for some defensive skills, but as I said, I prefer to kill the elites like fast, so I can literally farm them. Mark of Death with the Grim Reaper rune, it gives you even more AoE damage. So basically when you cast it on whatever elite you find. Always, you need to keep it up always on at least one of the elites. I don't know if it's a bug or it's just intended, but I managed to cast it 3 times simultaneously on 3 elite mobs. Maybe it was a bug because it doesn't happen often. At least I didn't try to, but I managed to do it once. So with this, and when the elites stack like on the area of effect of this spell, Mark for Dead, if you hit the main mob, which is marked with cluster arrows, you're gonna deal an enormous amounts of damage. I mean, you're gonna deal the cluster arrow damage plus 20% of the damage done to the target. Basically, you're gonna deal 20% damage of the damage the cluster arrow hits the main target. And they drop pretty easily, not to mention that cluster arrow is an AoE. And it just kills them. It just does. For passives, I go with the usual. Steady aim for increased damage, because they always try to like hit them from a far away distance. Archery, that's a must for every demon hunter. If you don't have archery, that's not good for you. And this is the only skill build I use sharpshooter, because with, as I stated earlier on, with so much magic find that you need to get, your gear is weaker than just pure DPS. So you need as much DPS increase as you can possibly get. So your idea is, you find an elite pack, you mark them, but first get to like 100% crit, so your first volley of cluster arrows is definitely a critical hit. Mark them, smoke screen, run a little bit, like smoke screen, run a little bit away, because the mobs are gonna be close, and just shoot 2 cluster arrows. You're gonna have enough discipline for 2. Then you just shoot them, it depending on if they're close by, just shoot them with evasive fire. It hits up to 3 of them. And if it's only one that's chasing you and the other ones are slacking off, just hit them with hungering arrows until your hatred goes back up. It's gonna require like 2 or 3 shots until you can cast another cluster arrow. So when you get it again, smoke screen, shoot it, and then the idea is try to kite, because you'll be left with only 1 or 2 smoke screens depending on how much your preparation is gonna proc, and no hatred for cluster arrow, and a low health. So basically if they manage to get you, you're dead. Also, a little bit of a tip: when you're magic finding, always drag the elites next to a waypoint. Basically, it doesn't matter if you find them in the middle of the level, just drag them slowly without dying to the waypoint, because if you die, you're gonna like let them heal if you're in the middle of the level, because it doesn't matter how fast you can run or if you can TP or so on. There is some kind of a mechanic that if you're far away from the elite pack, they just insta heal. So if you're close to waypoint, even if you die for 8 seconds, basically your timing window to kill an elite pack is 3 deaths. If you don't manage by that amount of deaths, you're pretty much required to create a new game. The idea of this is, when you die, elites run around, okay, but when you rest up, your follower automatically resurrects. I mean, you're a ghost still, but he literally resurrects, so the mobs stopped healing and chase your merc. So he's gonna die, you don't mind, but you're gonna have enough time to position yourself far away. Let's say you wake up here, the time that you resurrect, you just start running, and your follower is gonna take its time to let's say get killed by the mobs. So you just get in positions. Afterwards, you just smoke screen right afterwards, so the mobs don't chase you like when they see you, and you put 2 grenades up. That should most of the time kill all the elites. Well, if they have reflect damage, that's gonna be a little bit more problematic, or if they have extra health, but you know, you get the point. You just kite, you just use smoke screen, you just keep your distance, because if they're close, cluster arrow doesn't hit them. Just look, let's say I'm standing behind the stash. I don't think it's gonna go through, but let's say the stash is where the mob's gonna stay. If you literally click on the mob, one sec, and try to hit it with cluster grenades, it's gonna jump over. See, it's gonna jump over like exactly 1 person of space. So that's about it, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it helps someone.